Alright, and welcome to the Grab Chess Club, grab.2u.com. I'm continuing my journey through the World Open 2007 and the King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. It took place over the 4th of July week. This was the round 3 game. Up to this point, I was 2-0, as was my opponent, John Hale. This is the under 1600 section, by the way. And in this next game, I had black. On a little side note, up to this game, I had played the number 3 and the number 5 rated players in my section. And I was the number like 21 or something like that. And this game now was against the number 1 player in the section, so needless to say I was a little intimidated, but I knew that if I wanted to prove myself I had to do it in this game, so I tried to play very, very solid chess. So my opponent opened with b4, which is known as the Polish or the orangutan, and the point of it is that he wants to put his bishop on b2 and just bear down on my king side. Really, I don't really like the move b4 because it's just going to give me complete control of the center. White's not even going to try to fight for the center. He's just giving it to me. And already, after the first move, Fritz thinks that I am almost half a pawn ahead. So I play e6, and he plays bishop b2. Notice that I can't take that pawn on b4 because then he takes on g7 and my rook is hanging. So definitely don't want to do that. Instead, I play d5. And I decided that I want to play this like a French. I just want to play e6, d5, play c5, and just, play solid chess. I'm very comfortable with the French and the positions that arise from it, so if I just can get it into some kind of position like that, where white doesn't even have the move e4 and e5, then, obviously, I've got something going for me. So he plays e3, I play knight f6, so then now he has to make a decision with his pawn. His pawn is hanging now. So he plays b5, and I play c5. Now he goes c4 to protect the pawn. I just develop my pieces, knight bd7, knight f3, and I play b6 to stop any kind of pawn pushes, and also just to protect that pawn on c5 in case I need to do something else with my bishop. He goes c takes d5, I take e takes d5, and now he goes bishop to d3. And I asked him afterwards why he did this, why he blocks in his d pawn, and he said that he did this because he was doing some online blitz stuff where he's able to sacrifice one or both of his bishops on the king side and get some kind of mating attack going. And when you look at it, his pieces can become coordinated, and it wouldn't take that long. It's just that if I'm playing carefully, it's not going to happen. So instead, I think he should have played bishop e2 and maybe gone for like a d4, and then it's just like a queen's pawn opening. Where he has an advanced b pawn, which might actually be nice, because then he can follow up with a4 and expand on the queen side. So, anyway, he plays bishop d3, which I don't think is good, and I play bishop d6, he plays a4, and now I castle, and he plays h3, and it's about this time I realize that he doesn't even want to castle. So, I play rook e8, hoping to play d4 to shut down his bishop on b2, and instead he plays g4, and now I go bishop b7, so that when I play d4, I have all kinds of tricky stuff with that knight and the pin against the rook on the a1. So he plays rook to g1 to step out of that, and I play d4. Now his dark square bishop is not doing anything at all. He plays g5, and I play knight to d5. Notice now that I'm threatening all sorts of invasions with my knight. If I jump to f4, he can't take me because of there's the pin with the rook on e8 and the king on e1. And then I'm also threatening to jump to h3 and attack that rook. And then, if the rook goes back to a1, I have that bishop on b7 bearing down on that knight he has to worry about. There's all sorts of stuff here. So here, Fritz thinks that his best moves are rook a3 or king f1, but even after those moves, it thinks that I have at least a pawn's worth ahead. It thinks that I'm at least a pawn ahead. So, needless to say, he finds that his position, he needs to do something active. I guess he thinks that he needs to play active, so he plays bishop takes h7. He sacrifices a piece. And during the game, I took a lot of time on these next few moves just because I wanted to make sure that I was going to play smart. I did not want him to allow him to mate me in a position where he shouldn't deserve to mate me. So, even though I took a lot of moves, we're going to go through them quickly because, as you'll see, the moves don't look like they're doing much. So, I take on h7, he takes on d4, so he sacrifices a second piece. I oblige, and I take back. He plays queen h5, I play king g8, g6, I take back on g6. He takes with the rook, which allows me this nice tactic. The nice tactic to knight f4. And now I'm forking his queen and rook, and obviously he can't take me. So, he's lost already. He was lost when he took with the bishop, but now it's clear to him that he's not really going to get anything. So he just keeps throwing pieces in my way. Rook takes g7 check, so now he's sacrificed 3 pieces. Count them, 3 pieces. So he takes on d4 with the bishop check, and I have bishop e5, so he's not going anywhere. So he tries to get some activity with queen g4. Really, it's just an amount of how many checks he can throw my way before the game's over. We're going to go ahead and skip ahead. Because really, once you get so far ahead in the game, it's just a matter of how quickly you can trade down the material. And maybe if I was like a knight ahead and that was it, I would be more cautious, because you don't want to get down to an endgame where it's just a king and knight versus a king. But I mean, I'm ahead. What am I ahead here? I'm ahead 2 pieces and a rook. So I just really wanted to trade down as quickly as possible. And I asked him afterwards why he was so willing to keep playing on. And he said that he was just hoping that I would be a pawn grabber, which I suppose, you never win a game by resigning, so it's not a bad idea, because if I start grabbing pawns, maybe he can have some kind of endgame where he has a rook, a desperado rook, and I can't take the rook because then it's a stalemate or something like that. So the game progresses for 15 or so more moves until I get to this position. Hopefully the video is not lagging too far behind right now, because I'll be talking about moves that you can't even see yet. So I'm going to wait a few seconds. Alright. So I get to this position in this game, and I calculate that I have a forced mate on the board. I play knight. Well, I already said knight, so I play knight to e1 check. Notice that his king has very, very few squares to go to, and there's some very pretty mates that can go on if he plays his king to the wrong square. I might even be able to get like a mate with just my knights, and my bishop. I might not even have to bring my rook into the game. So he plays king to h2. I play rook to g8. Now I'm threatening all sorts of things like rook to h2 check, and I mean the game is very, very close to being over. So he plays h4, and I play knight f3 check. And now there's some pretty stuff. I was hoping he'd go king h3 when I have bishop f1 check, or I also have bishop e6 mate, so all sorts of mates. But instead he just does the let's go back. Instead he just goes king h1 and rook g1 mate. So it's a nice mate in the game. And notice that even if it wasn't mate, if it was just a check, that he was hanging his rook, or his knight. I'm sorry, his knight on d1. So I think the key here why he lost is because he never got his pieces coordinated, and he launched an attack when he wasn't ready for it. Maybe if he'd spent a few more moves, maybe if he had just played that d4 and played his bishop to e3 after that, and just spent more time coordinating his pieces than trying to get a quick mate on me, maybe things would have gone different for him. There was some tricky stuff I could have lost with, but more or less, when you play solid chess and you play with the principles in mind, you're not going to run into too much trouble. So hopefully you enjoyed this game. I'm going to spend more time on my next game, maybe 2 or 3 full lessons, because it's a very instructive end game, and you know how much I love those. So hopefully you join me for that next game, the round 4 game, where I play another 3-0 player, and I believe that is my first draw of the tournament. So hopefully you join me for that. Thank you for joining me for this game. I'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.